Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Pit Talk, pulling pits and opinions with your host, Gunny G, where service members help service members. Follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcast and on all social media platforms. Let me know how I'm doing. Any criticism is great criticism. We got a special guest hailing in from mainland Japan, about to take command, Marine Corps Station Iwakuni, miles 12 out there, by the name of Lieutenant Colonel Freddie Perez. We go way back. Sir, go ahead and say hello to the listeners.
Hey, hello everybody, and thanks for having me back on. I appreciate it. Let's get into it.
Absolutely. You know what? I thank you for coming on because you came on maybe last year and you talked about toxic leadership. And to be honest, it's been the top 5 podcasts or sessions that I've had so far, and I guess people like what you have to say. So we have to get the listeners what they want, and you're back on for round 2. So thank you again for coming on. I appreciate it.
Happy to be back and happy for all the feedback as well. We all have blind spots, so appreciate you keeping me honest.
Absolutely. So we gotta get into the meat and potatoes of this. You're taking command here come June, last week of June, or third week of June, sometime there, or what is it?
June 13th.
June 13th, okay, right in the middle. And brand new battalion commander, squadron commander. Are you nervous?
I wouldn't say nervous. I'm very excited. I think nervous is that this is probably the last 2 years of kind of where the rubber meets the road, because after command, if I'm selected for colonel, then I'm going to be in a staff field. So this is going to be the sum of my career that I get to be so close in the trenches with the Marines. And I know I'm going to miss that after 26 years of service. Man, I already know it's coming. So that's probably why I'm nervous, but I'm more excited about the opportunity to inspire young Marines and bring some of that old school kind of thinking, try to bring that back.
Awesome. Well, that was a bad question. I should have known you're not nervous. You're ready to go. You've been talking about it since you got to Sasebo, right? That's where you're at right now?
At TD.
Okay, I'm sorry. Brief background, sir. Where you been at, billets, capacities, how long you been in, stuff like that.
So 26 years now, prior enlisted for 9 years, made it all the way to Staff Sergeant as a prior enlisted airframer, got commissioned through Southern Illinois University, commissioned in 2006, became an aviation maintenance officer, kind of my way, I believe, after 9 years of serving with all that experience. The best way I could give back to the Marine Corps is to take what they've given me and go back in the same field that I already had, and it's worked out wonderfully.
Hell yeah! I don't know if that always works.
I'll say, I just came from the Miles 36 skills change of command, and he was able to go full circle. He started there as a Lance Corporal at Miles 36 and made it all the way. And we have roughly the same years of service. He made it all the way to Staff Sergeant, then got commissioned, and now he's the CO of Miles 36. That would have been the Cinderella story for me too, to go back to Miles 29. But Miles 29 been in so long, it's no longer really in commission anymore. So Miles 12 is near and dear to my heart. But I've been in manpower. I've been in MMOA. I've been mostly East Coast my entire career. Did an EXO stint down in Pensacola with all the students, a lot of NCIS, a lot of investigations down there, but a very senior staff down there, which is very unique to the Marine Corps. You don't usually have that many staff NCOs, so it's really good. Deployment-wise, I've been on the 24th MU for 9 months. I was on a military transition team with the 1st Battalion, 7th Iraqi, military transition 142 for a year in Iraq, which was, man, that was exciting. And then with the MA 223 in Kandahar, Afghanistan, 11 and 12, just before the Bastion attacks.
You got some rubber under those tires, so to speak. You're taking command. You're not really nervous, but that's expected. I mean, knowing you've been talking about it since you got to mainland Japan, and it's something that's been on near and dear to your heart. And ever since you've been selected for command, you've been pretty excited about it. How do you? We have an identity as an individual Marine. You are now entrusted to have a command identity. How do you plan on establishing that full circle?
Yeah, and you're gonna take all the tricks out of my books right now, out of my book before I take command. Yeah, and like I said earlier, I guess I'll give you some of my insight and some of my thoughts. I do think that there's a personality that you want to bring to your command and a culture. As I said earlier, I want to bring back kind of that old school thought process. I'll give you a little bit of insight. I think to bring it back, I think my slogan, I'm going to give you my slogan here, man. You're going to be the first to hear it
Hey.
on Pit Talk Podcast. And it's going to just, maybe you can hold off on airing this till after I take command. But, my slogan is going to be, in a world full of people that are sometimes Fidelis, be semper Fidelis. Everybody talks about it, but I want you to be about it. I don't want a sometimes Fi Marine. I want a semper Fi Marines, right? Somebody that we love to say semper Fi, screaming from the top of our lungs as Marines. But are we really actually being semper Fi in our daily activities, in our daily decisions with our families, with our friends, and most importantly to ourselves, right? Are we always faithful? Because I'm telling you right now, if you want to end a Marine's career in 1 second, all you gotta say is, once they're in trouble, are you a semper Fi Marine or a sometimes Fi Marine? You call a Marine a sometimes Fi Marine, man. That cuts deep, right? And especially if they're standing in front of, the CO or the XO or the sergeant major or even a staff NCO, and they're coming off some kind of incident. And the first question you ask them is, remember the CO had a little discussion, and his slogan is sometimes Fi versus semper Fi. And you coming in here breaking the law tells me you're a sometimes Fi Marine. And I think young Marines, they don't really understand, at Pensacola, they don't really understand what a page 11 is, what a 6105 is. Even sometimes NJPs, they just really don't have a good grasp on. So if you're not taking their liberty or you're not making them feel something, they don't realize till later on down the road how much that stuff really impacts their career. And really, they're not even thinking that. Most of them are not thinking that far down the road. So that's the kind of energy I'm going to bring to my command is, I'm giving you everything I got. I'm being sanctified. I need you to not talk about it. I need you to be about it, right? Everybody wants to wear dress blues, on the Saturdays to the parties and to the mall, but nobody wants to wear the rest of the uniforms when duty calls. Everybody wants the title, but not the commitment. Everybody wants to say semper Fi, but be sometimes Fi. And that's the kind of energy that I want to bring to NALS 12, the Mighty Marauders.
I have to ask, and I have to be honest with you. Some of us are semper sometimes, right? And how do you, if you're creating identity, and the majority of us, I think the majority of the E5 and below populace are semper sometimes, and they don't understand, just like you said, they don't grasp the idea of what's happening to them, in terms of getting in trouble. How do you bridge that gap with them in terms of establishing your culture, your identity at Mouse 12?
And you're just going to pull everything out of me before I even take command. Come on, man.
Wave tops. Don't give me a sneak peek. Don't give everything. I don't want your policy letters, so to speak.
Well, you're not going to have my policy letter, but you're going to have my mindset, right? So my slogan is, sometimes Fi versus semper Fi, right? So it's going to go back to, self-awareness is a big thing, and being honest with yourself first, right? And so when you're making decisions, why are you making those decisions? To do something unethical, immoral, or illegal, right? Because we all know what's right from wrong, and a lot of us were taught that as we grew up. But I think when it comes to self-awareness, I had this discussion the other day where a lot of people have grown up their whole life and they don't know how to deal with rejection. They don't know how to deal with the pain of defeat. So a lot of times, even if they know right from wrong, then it's not till they join the Marine Corps that they're experiencing some kind of setback, heartbreak, failure. And it's important for us as staff NCOs and officers to kind of help them guide through rejection, because those are painful emotions. And as somebody like myself, I've dealt with rejection my entire life, and it's fine. I I embrace it. Let's go, man. I rejected. Okay, I've been rejected a million times before. Let's keep on pushing. Let's push harder. But not everybody has that willpower, and a lot of it is just having a lot of self awareness of, especially when you're feeling some kind of emotion, to say, all right, why am I making this decision? Am I down? Am I sad? Am I hungry? Am I, all these things? And one of the things I always tell Marines is never underestimate your ability to make a bad situation worse, right? I'm telling you right now, Marines sit there and they're already in some trouble. And instead of like just, taking the night, go to sleep, get some shut eye, rest, recuperate, they end up doing something when they're caught up in the emotions, and they make it worse, right? So self-awareness is something that I want to teach over and over again. And I'll give you my wave top again. My mantra at Nalswell is going to be, snap and pop, right? I'm a big believer in not kind of reinventing the wheel, but taking what is already ingrained in our head and extending a little bit more, do a little more teaching. So again, like simplify, right? No sense in me making something up that Marines have never heard before. That's sometimes fi, right? Nobody's talking about sometimes fi, but it's the truth, right? Even in Marines, we have some sometimes fi Marines, right? And we want to get them to be simplified. They'll scream simplified at the top of their lungs, but knowing that deep inside they're not self-aware to actually be simplified. So my mantra is going to be snap and pop. That's how you become simplified devils, right? Simplify all the time. And kind of the background of how I came up with this is, from the first time you step on the yellow footprints in boot camp, or the first time you're reading Ductus Exemplo at OCS, or even for the Naval Academy graduates that go straight to TBS, snap and pop is drilled in all of our heads from the day we joined the Marine Corps by our Jones instructors and our sergeant instructors. So when you say snap and pop, it means something to Marines, right? And it's the way I see it is it's synonymous with precision execution. And if you take that a step further, look no further than our silent drill platoon, right? Silent drill team. Everything they do is precision, and they do it in their mind to the sound of snap pop. And it's a rhythm, right? So taking snap and pop and making my mantra or my acronym out of it, the first thing the S stands for is self-awareness, right? So what I want Marines to do is I want Marines to be on liberty, and when they're thinking about they're going down that path of going down the wrong way, right? First off, I hope that through the slogan, another Marine is going to be, hey, listen, man, the Sergeant Major and the CO talked about being sometimes fire, right? Let's get back. You're simplified. Let's talk you off the ledge. Let's not get in any kind of legal trouble. Don't be a sometimes fire Marine, man. Don't be. And usually that in itself can sometimes bring people back. But what I really want to ingrain is snap and pop. And again, S stands for self-awareness. Why am I doing this? Why am I making this? And so, sorry, let me go back one. Snap. Snap is the decision-making process of not only your Marine Corps career, but it could be in your personal life too, right? Every decision you make, you should be thinking snap. And the pop is actually the execution of the decision. So in the decision-making process, the way I envision it in incorporating my mantras, self-awareness, right? I'm a CEO. I have a lot of power. I can easily tell everybody, we're not doing this, we're doing this, we're not doing this. I need to be self-aware that even for myself, control my emotions. And if somebody's challenging me, I need to take that in and not just say no. I need to be self-aware. Did I just tell that gunny or that, Massarn no because I wanted to, or do I have a legit reason why? I need to be honest with myself. And that's what the self-awareness is, right? So when I'm about to make a decision, I have to be self-aware, number one. The N stands for, is this decision necessary right now? Does it have to be right now? Or can it be delayed later? Can I think about it some more? Can I sleep on it overnight? And then the A is attitude. When I'm making this decision, first off, I have self-awareness. Then it's when I've established that it's necessary, do I have the right attitude about it? Am I motivated about it? Am I sad about it? Or when I give an order to two Marines, are they still mad that I didn't go with their decision, right? And this happens, right? So they need to, once I give the why, they need to say, okay, I need to have the right attitude because this is what the scripture wants. This is his decision in the end. And even though I'm mad about it, when I go execute it with the troops and create that subculture that we've had a conversation about, the staff NCOs can do that, do I have the right attitude about implementing it, right? And the last thing is in the decision-making process with SNAP is, does it have a purpose, right? So self-awareness, necessary, the right attitude, and does it have a purpose right now? And when you, in my mind, when you put those things together, that's the decision-making process of SNAP, right? And precision execution. And once you have those four things, and I use this in my life too, you move on to the execution part of the decision, which is pop. And when you get to pop, the first thing you got to do is you got to be passionate about that decision. Not just in the Marine Corps, but in life. But think about starting a podcast, right? If you use, I want to start a podcast, self-aware, necessary. Do I have the right attitude, mental attitude about it? Does it have a purpose? The purpose to educate, whatever. Okay, now that you've made that decision to start a podcast, you better be passionate about it, man. Because if you're not, you got to stay consistent, right? And you got to be passionate about it, because there's going to be some off days, some down days that you're not motivated about it. And the second thing with pop is optimistic, right? You got to be passionate about it. Then you got to be optimistic about it. You got to be happy to get back in that microphone. Even though there's some hits and misses in there, you got to stay optimistic about it. It's going to be ups and downs. And then the last P is you have to stay persistent, man. You have to stay persistent in the execution phase. So if you think about on the battlefield or something, right? Once we start executing the mission, so decision, then on through the execution, we're going to go take that hill. We're passionate about taking that hill. We're going to stay optimistic. If you lose a couple Marines along the way, which is worst case scenario, we're still taking that hill, right? And we have to stay persistent. The enemy's tough, and we have to stay persistent on this, and we have to lay down some more machine gun fire. And so I think these two principles, snap and pop, or this mantra, we all understand snap and pop. And so I think when you drill that in Marines' head enough, my hope is that, and I think we all naturally do this, but we don't know how it's explained to us, especially with some of the younger people, right? And I don't like, even when I tell you this, I'm not making a earth-shattering, discovery here, right? You're going, man, I already do this naturally, right? But it's never been explained in this term where I can break it down, as we used to say in the Marine Corps, Barney style, for some of the people that have never dealt with rejection and or have actually thought through a full-on decision-making and execution. How do I make my decisions? How do I execute them? And so I think that as we tell Marines and beat the drum, snap, pop, every weekend when I'm telling Marines, snap and pop, right? Snap and pop. It's gonna already mean something to them as Marines, but it's gonna be something a little bit different. Now they're gonna think precision execution. They're gonna think self-aware, necessary, attitude, purpose, passionate, optimistic, and persistent.
That's good. I like it.
Answer.
No, it's good. I like snap and pop because, for me, snap and pop is cracking sticks, drill. And it kind of co-aligns, and I think that's where you're trying to get it. It's almost get that post-traumatic stress disorder and anxiety built up in the Marines, right? And say, like, look, hey, snap and pop, drill. This is what we're doing, and are you doing it right? If not, we got to do it again. Right. So,
man, and in the Marine Corps, precision execution, small wrong decisions in our line of business can get people killed, right? Even in the aviation world, you got CBIs, you got inspectors, and if somebody's not making the right decisions and going through the decision-making process to the execution, small decisions can really be catastrophic. And I think we need to beat the drum on why we're making a decision. Because like I said, never underestimate your ability to make a bad situation worse. And you want to reset.
A bad situation worse. I was talking to Nando. I don't remember Nando, Master Guns Hernandez.
I did, yeah.
And he was talking about, if there's 9 dumbasses in the room, don't be the 10th, right? It's kind of the same thing. Kind of same, don't make a situation worse by being the 10th one. It doesn't work. It's not going to work at the end state. That's good. Snap pop, ladies and gentlemen. It's a good mantra. It resonates. Especially with Marines that are, checking into your unit, that senior staff that are drill instructors, they're gonna love it. Snap and pop, it's gonna resonate with them. Yeah,
I'll
they're gonna eat it up for sure.
I'll send you a copy of my actual layout of how I'm gonna put it out there, so you can see the breakdown of the decision making onto the execution, along with my write up of the history of Snap and Pop being ingrained in all of us.
Uh, I also want that banner. I know we were texting a couple weeks back. I want the banner once you get take command. It's an awesome little memento for your command.
Yes.
But I gotta say, you got your mantra. You're not nervous about taking command, but in my short time compared to yours, leadership always does this roller coaster ride. With that roller coaster ride comes legalities, comes investigations, comes shenanigans, comes whatever under the sun. Do you think because you're gonna create a footprint of Snap and Pop, do you think that you're gonna run into a lot of friction in terms of breaking the mold or breaking whatever they're going through or whatever they're so used to with the previous battalion commander? Not saying that he's bad or they're bad. I'm saying with change of leadership comes a lot of friction because they're trying to figure out who the new BC or the squadron commander is.
Well, I think through my slogan and my Marauder mantra, which is Snap and Pop, the idea is that it gets not only the person that's about to make the decision in the mindset, but also those around him or her to say, "Hey, man, my police are our own, right?" So where hopefully you're not that 10th guy, as Nando talked about, right? You're the guy that's like, "Listen, man, we're not sometimes five Marines. We're Semper Fi Marines. So everybody's got to stop this. And we know that this is illegal, unethical, immoral, whatever. Remember, why are we doing this? What are we self-aware right now? Is this necessary right now?" And I think, when I went to Cornerstone, when the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps and the Commandant of the Marine Corps were up there, and they said some simple words to us as commanders. They're like, who's got over 20 years in the Marine Corps? Or here, what do you got to lose? We got your back. We got your back. Go out there and lead Marines. And I think, when you empower staff NCOs and officers and you give them something to actually fall on and lean back on, that comes from the top. The CO's words are simple. It's be simplified. Don't talk about it, be about it, right? Don't be sometimes five. And also Snap and Pop. Are you meeting the CO's intent? If I put out a mission statement about readiness and when they're on liberty, they're not thinking about readiness. When they're about to make decisions, Marines rarely get in trouble at work, to be honest, right? Marines always perform well. I don't even want to talk about what some Marines do and then come back and still perform well, right? We'll keep it PG here. Sometimes they're so good at covering it up at work, you have no idea, what's going on. But you got to get them to think outside of business, right? Because when they put the uniform on, they're Superman again. But when they go out on liberty, they're not thinking of aircraft readiness or weapon readiness. Or they're thinking about liberty. And you have to bring back some of those traditional values because the legal world is much different when you're going out there. So the hope is that through these slogans and the mantra that everybody's policing each other, and I have less of that because I firmly believe that people don't join the Marine Corps to be average; they join to be great. And somewhere along the line, we stop holding them to that standard. If we're not at least maintaining the standards, then by default, we're lowering the standard automatically. And Marines see right through that stuff. There's subtle things you can do that Marines can see. Boss doesn't trust me. We can't do this. Can't do that. I need a little bit more, boss. Okay, we know that means you basically don't trust us. You indirectly say things without having to speak them say them out loud. There's always going to be, I guess, the 10% out there, but I've had many of times where Marines, including staff NCOs and officers, have come into my office after making a mistake through my words. And the things that I've said are my standards when I have conversations with them about it. And it's growing pains, right? We're growing together, we're learning together, and they definitely made a mistake. But at the end of it, more often than not, the staff NCOs and the officers are like, you have to beat this out, but they're like, "Sir, honestly, I would have much preferred you chewing my ass than that disappointed dad throwing your own words back in my face, calling me a sometimes fly Marine or asking me if I'm a sometimes fly Marine. Could you just chew my ass and let me go? I'll take it. but when you dig
Oh,
in, it resonates a lot more. Yeah. Just hoping everybody polices their own in the end. You know, Marines tend to feel guilty when they let other Marines down as well, and we're not upholding the standard, right? When they have my words to use to stop Marines, it helps out a lot more. And I think as commanders, we miss out on giving Marines words and expectations and standards to use on liberty or other incidences, right? Because if you read most mission statements, it talks about the job. The job. Nobody's putting mantras and slogans out there, the words directly from the CO, so that other Marines can say, when a Marine's about to get a bad situation, something wrong. Hey, dog, stop, man. Don't be a sometimes fine Marine, bro. Just like the CO said. Right now, you're about to be sometimes fine, right?
yeah.
Snap and pop, bro. And when you're a young troop, those things matter, man. They're not thinking about page 11s and 6105s. They're not, but you start hurting their pride a little bit as a young man. Peer to peer leadership is hard. So you got to be able to give them something to use in those moments.
Yeah, that's good, sir. I tell you what, there's two questions here, and you got to touch on it, and you got to be honest and transparent about these two questions, right? You talked about the culture that we create, the accountability that we have. Who is the we that you're talking about, and how can we improve in holding the standard, right? And then the follow-on question is, everybody has mercy, right? I use it for lack of better words, mercy, grace, right? Um, Everybody has it, right? And you're going to have the authority to reduce and promote. Do you see yourself immediately showing mercy, grace to scenario situations, or are you going to be, setting the standard? If the PFT is 300, that is the standard. That is where we're going with. Anything outside of that is kind of, you're deviating. You're already setting the bar too low.
To touch on your first question about I think we as Marines, right? We need constant reminders that every day is a challenge. Every day there's a new, unique challenge, and we're going to be tested every day with all of our standards. There's so many standards to uphold. Are you looking away? Are you not looking away? And we all have a responsibility not to look away. So that's from the senior officer down, senior enlisted, all the way down. And I also think when I say we've had this discussion before about, senior officers and senior enlisted, where you tend to become in this self-preservation mode, where it's just easier to just look the other way, don't cause any confrontation. And if I see that happening in my command, I'm going to call you out on it, right? And I think we
Yeah.
always have a responsibility to call each other out on this stuff, man. And that's why I say to you, I never have an easy life, because I'm always trying to uphold the standards, and it makes for a very difficult life. So that's number one on the week. Number two, when it comes to mercy, I've been doing this long enough to understand that dropping the hammer does not do what we think it does, right? Because most of the time when you drop the hammer on a Marine, you're trying to make an example of a Marine. All you're doing is you cannot communicate I cannot communicate at the lowest level. I'm going to make an example and pull a Marine's rank off and reduce them and take money, and everybody's going to get the hint. What I've seen in my career is that that Marine goes back, and now Marines go, that wasn't even fair, and that's all the young Marines' friend. So you can never battle that insight from those individuals down there. So you should never be, in my opinion, having mercy. I should never be making a decision to make an example out of somebody. I think that's the wrong mindset, right? You look at every case individually. I think I'll say it, and this is as honest as it gets. You see me pretty active on X, right? And I cannot tell you how often I'm let down by watching some of the very heinous acts from senior officers and senior enlisted, and the things that they do pale in comparison to a young Marine with a liberty violation, and they get smacked on the hands for it, right? And it sets a precedence where I've been that junior troop before, and I've seen it before, and it causes people to be very disgruntled in the lower ranks. And I think that actually when you have mercy, it's tenfold. When you go in there to that young Marine, because he's going to go back or she's going to go back and she's going to say exactly what happened. There's going to be witnesses in there for the NJP. And you're not trying to set an example. But when you show mercy and the witnesses and the Marine go, wow, Saul showed mercy. He said he still has faith in me. He still believes in me. He wants me to turn the corner from being a sometimes 5 Marine to being a Semper 5 Marine. And I'm allowed to make mistakes, right? There was nothing malicious behind that mistake. There was nothing with intent. And they go back and tell those stories. And those stories are 10 times more powerful than making an example of somebody that you wanted to. So for me, I believe that mercy is much more powerful than dropping the hammer or making an example out of somebody.
That's good. I tell you what, if you're listening and you're taking this in, we got Lieutenant Colonel Perez going to take a man in June, and showing mercy and grace towards the situations is by far the best approach, it sounds like, and that's the approach you're going to take. And I respect you. You know, it's an honorable move, because I know only one other in my short time that did that, and I respected her 100%. Not once did I question her authority. Not once did I not want to go up to bat for her. Lieutenant Colonel Batson was a very, it's kind of weird to say, but she applied mercy and grace in every single NJP, every single ADSEP, every single time, and it's an amazing experience to see. And she's not in it with, she's not in the weeds with the senior officer, right? She's outside. She takes herself outside of the picture, outside of the scope, and she can make a informed decision about the scenario. And it's great. It's good leadership.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that a lot of people don't consider is that times change, right? And
okay.
People are not understanding this, right? So I think about this a lot. I think about the early 2000s when email was first coming to the masses, right? In the Marine Corps. Regardless, I never did it, but it happened a lot to where, you know, we didn't have social media and all these other things. But when you got email, guess what? Memes start to get generated somehow, some way, right? And the early 2000s, people were sending out memes and email chains. And the way that the Marine Corps dealt with it was NJP people for sending memes to other users, right? So if you think about how far we've come along, you use that example to say, man, is this what I'm about to punish this Marine for? Do you think this will still be the standard 10, 15 years from now?
Mm.
And some of these Marines won't recover from this, and now we send memes in every single day. Tell me one day you don't send a meme, right? And these Marines did nothing. It was just so new technology at the time. They couldn't send it to their buddies on email, personal emails. That wasn't even really a thing back in. The only way they could have a joke with their fellow Marines was sending it via government email, and people got in trouble for it. And so that's why you also have to think, the long game too, right?
Yeah, that's good.
And how you're going to impact the Marines' career for years.
Think about that. That example that definitely hits home because you're right. Is it applicable 5 years from now? Technology is so advanced nowadays. Is it even applicable? Right. The punishment that I'm giving, is it going to be relatable? Is it going to resonate 5 years from now? And is it going to apply? I mean, that's great gouge. I'll tell you what. I have to ask though. I have to break down the we part again. Because I have a firm belief that you create the identity, the culture of the squadron as a battalion commander and whatever higher leadership we have. But it's the responsibility of the staff NCO. I think that to enforce that culture and identity, when you have battles in generations and cultures where young impressionable individuals are not listening, are not doing what they're told, it's because the standard has been set. And you talked about we as need to hold the line, hold the standard. Who is the we? I think even more specifically, the staff NCO, the unit leader, the platoon sergeant that's there with the platoon commander. we enforce the culture, we enforce the identity, and I think that it would be unfair of me to say not to say that there's some truth to it, because I see it now in this command that we're doing. It's just a weird culture, and I don't understand why E5s and below are making the decisions that they're making. And people say it's the staff NCO, and not that the staff NCO is doing it. It's just, you're right. They're turning the other cheek. They're turning a blind eye, and they're not holding standard. And I think that we have to address that as leaders. How do you plan, if that is the case for your, and I hope that's not the case for, Mouse 12, but if that is the case, if that is a scenario, how do you plan on tackling, the senior enlisted in your squadron?
This is probably the easiest answer I have, to be honest. And I think in the world we live in, don't get this misconstrued, but as the commanding officer, I need to be very cognizant of my pronouns when I use we and when I use I, right? Specifically, it's my responsibility. I take full accountability for what happened, right? Because that's me. I'm the commanding officer. But we as an organization, right? I won't take credit. I'm not taking credit for everything. If somebody's giving me credit, that's what so and so and so and so. But when you talk about the staff NCO Corps specifically, wholeheartedly concur with you. I set the tone for the organization, but as soon as I go into my command, the first thing I'm going to tell my staff NCOs in my meeting is, I have the highest standards in this whole organization for my staff NCOs, and the reason is because of a unit of 500 Marines, 95% of them want to be like you, not me. They want to be you. They want to be you, Gunny. They want to be you, Staff Sergeant. So the standard that I have for you is higher than anybody else in my unit. And if you're a staff NCO and you're not holding to the standard or above the standard, we got a problem. Because these Marines want to be like you. They don't want to be like Lieutenant Colonel Perez. They want to be like Gunny Garcia. Right? Maybe later on in life when they, when they get a little older and maybe they want to change their goals. But initially, we come in the Marine Corps, we all want to be the sergeant major, right? Because it's right out of boot camp. We all want to be the Gunny. So in the first 5 years, I think my staff NCOs have the biggest impact of retention on Marines getting out and creating that subculture. But I have to reinforce to the staff NCOs that I have the highest standards for them, and they will maintain those standards because the Marines look to them. If the Marines want to be more like me than you, that's a problem. That's a problem.
Ouch.
Big problems. If the majority of the Marines want to be like the CO more so than the gunnies and the staff NCOs, we got a problem in my command, and it ain't me.
Man, I'll tell you what, it's going to be I hope that's not the case. I hope that's never the case for any new commander taking command, because that'd be it's a hill, definitely a hill decline for sure. For sure.
As a prior staff NCO myself, right? The staff NCO ranks become a little muddled. You pick up a staff sergeant, you're very young, you're still trying to figure out the politics of it all. But when I reinforce the staff NCOs that you are the highest standards that I have for people, now they can use that also to say, hey, if a staff sergeant's challenging the Gunny, you're not holding the standard, like the CO said. Remember what the CO said? And that's perfectly fine, right? That's tactful, right?
Yeah.
I'm just, hey Gunny, tell me, are you holding the standard, Gunny? I've done that my entire career, man. For everybody, even as an officer, like, hey, sir, you ain't holding the line. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm lying, right? I'm okay with it. Was a healthy debate, a healthy skepticism. I talk about healthy skepticism is good. It's good for you. It protects you from just becoming the yes man or yes woman, and it protects you from going down the lane of doing something illegal. Again, by challenging all the staff NCO Corps and empowering them to say, hey, you are the standard. You better raise the bar because 95% of the Marines want to be like you, not by me. Again, it's that whole, like, we can all hold each other accountable right now. Because, hey, Gunny, you ain't holding the standard that the CO's talking about. Remember, all these Marines are looking at you. You got 500, you got, 400 sets of eyes on you. On you. Not me.
That's true. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I tell you what, we both agree on the subculture in terms of staff NCOs, and it's not good to be. Well, I think as a collective, generally speaking, I think that the staff NCO Corps is going to get uncomfortable. At least your staff corps, it will be uncomfortable because they're so used to doing and being who they are, and when you get them outside those lines, it becomes uncomfortable, and it truly shows who they are when adversity comes. And I think that adversity is good. It builds resilience, and
Very good.
you, it sounds like you want to create an impression, you want to create a footprint, and it sounds like you're in the right direction. At least it feels this way to me in conversation, and I hope that it sticks to the wall. What are some I know that your time is precious. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me touch on this real quick. But where's the lie in what I just said? 90% of my Marines want to be like you. Where's the lie?
There's none. It's I always, we talk about, your son was in recruit training during the time that I was there, and we talk about who do the recruits want to be like? The senior NCO or the staff NCO that's in charge of them. That's who they see. That's who they want to be. And it goes in waves, and it transitions from the drill instructor to the MCT instructor, whoever it is at the time, but that's who they want to be, their staff NCO. It's not, and even when the fleet, it's the same thing. You're teaching, you're coaching, you're mentoring and you want to, as a staff NCO, you want to leave a better product and an organization because you're teaching them how to do your job. And if you do that, they're easily coachable and they're easily mentored with on-duty and off-duty conduct, liberty, whatever the case may be, right? And I agree.
Yeah, and
I completely agree.
And leadership's a long-term investment, so you're not going to see the results till later on down the road. So there's no, I can't tell you exactly what right looks like, but you'll definitely know when you see it, when Marines are calling you back up to promote them, or they're calling you later on down the line. Right, so you'll know it when you see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you a funny story to keep it short. I have never, up to this duty station and last duty station, I've never really promoted a Marine up until I got promoted to a staff NCO. Nice. Yeah, sure, I did read warrants, sure, whatever. Yeah, but it became a thing when I became a staff sergeant. Like, well, I get to promote you. You want me to promote you? That's dope.
Long term.
Yeah, long term, and you'll see it.
Long term.
Right? Hey, can you come to my promotion? Even if you don't promote somebody, the principle in inviting you, and you're not even there, it resonates. So I agree with you there, sir. I appreciate that word, that good gouge. I gotta make you uncomfortable here. And so hopefully, you're quick on your toes. Taking command, you're never gonna see the fruits of your labor. That's her in anything you do. You have command, you're taking command, and I'm excited for you. What do you think is going to be your biggest friction point outside of what we already talked about? Obviously, those are some topics of conversation, but what do you feel is going to be your biggest friction point moving into your command?
People will be uncomfortable with my leadership style. I'm talking about adjacent units, other commanders, maybe even higher, because I have no problem disagreeing with people. Again, I can disagree with you. My job is not to like or dislike anything, but I'm always comfortable in that area of challenging the status quo, right? So I think that, with the biggest challenge I'm going to have is not even my own command, because I embrace disagreement. I embrace whatever's on their mind. It's not going to hurt they're not going to hurt my feelings unless they're being very unprofessional about it. But I know that, and nobody's going to make me uncomfortable. I hope that they plant seeds in my head so that when I make a decision, that's what I expect of them. But the two things I think are, my peer group, the other commanders, if we're in a room and they want to do something, and I just say, that's not happening. That's not the way this works. That's going to be a friction point. I think even with my boss, my job is to not just tell him what he wants to hear, right? I'm going to say things he's probably not going to like, and it's going to get uncomfortable. But in the end, when he makes the decision, then I go back and enforce that decision. But I always will leave a nugget for the boss to think about, whether he likes it or doesn't like it. That's not my job, is to tell him what he doesn't like or what he likes to hear. It's to tell him the truth. And a lot of people, that's what makes it the most uncomfortable. And I also think that another biggest challenge is the politics of senior officers and senior enlisted, right? We talked about toxic leadership. Sometimes we miss that toxic leadership is the yes man, the yes woman, right? That tell me everything that I want to hear.
Yes,
and then do something behind your back. So I got to, command is going to be very intoxicating. Everybody's going to tell me what I want to hear. Not everybody operates like me. If I feel like in my brain I'm about to lose some sleep. My boss is going to know about it. My sergeant major is going to know about it. Everybody's going to know about it because I'm losing sleep over it. But some people, I don't know how some people sleep at night, but they do. You know, if I'm going to lose sleep over it, somebody's going to know. So I think that's it's important, right? And I think that those are going to be the biggest challenges that I have in the unit.
I do got, one more. Time's precious. We got, again, we're not getting paid to listen, and we ain't getting paid to run our mouth. It's just kind of just two guys talking. So, sir, I gotta ask you. We talked about way back when about making policy and how policy is not relevant and or doesn't apply to the current culture and the current age right now. And you were reminiscing on your experience and your left and right lettermans that you had to abide by, but it doesn't apply now. How do you intend on making policy relevant to the culture now? And are you going to make it applicable so that it makes sense? And it's not like, hey, you can't come to my house, but when I come to your room, it's on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, absolutely. So I think policy, unfortunately, in the military, policy becomes immortal, right? It never dies. It never goes away. Eventually, we keep squeezing Marines more and more and more, and taking all their liberties away through more and more policies, and never go back to look at different policies and take some away, right? So I think with policies, it's important that we revisit policies to see if they're still applicable today, right? Some of these things make me crazy. How are these things still active when it makes no sense whatsoever, right? I mean, how long did it take us to stop doing tobacco cessation classes, right, in the Marine Corps before it's like, okay, like, and the worst part is there's no limit. There was no limit to taking. I had to take it for 30 years in the military, even if I never smoked, right? Kind of crazy to think about, but we do these blanket policies. But I think one of the things I'm going to adopt is maybe quarterly, or at least quarterly or semi-annually. What I want to have these what I'll call first thought Friday, and it involves policy, right? And I want people's raw feelings, staff NCOs and officers' raw feelings about it without me saying anything. So when I say, okay, first thought Friday, Gunny Garcia, here we go. You ready? Almost like Jeopardy. And in front of the room, just pull it up. Boom. Liberty. Go. What's your first thoughts? I'm not, as a CO, I can give my thoughts all day, but I want to know your input, right? We don't need to wait till a command climate, or like, give us your thoughts right now. So if we want to make change, down in the trenches with the Marines, what's really making them upset about the policy that we have? I'm not down there in the trenches living that, right? And so I need to hear the frustrations from the staff NCOs, and I want, by enabling that, like, let's say first off Friday, next one, awards or end of tour awards, right? Go staff sergeant, go Gunny, go lieutenant, go. I'm not going to tell anybody what I think about end of tour awards. I want to know what you. So I think that's one way to get open dialogue about policy without just saying, here's what I think about liberty and here's what I think about awards. Because if I do that, not everybody, but most people can say, oh, it's great. And I don't want that kind of culture, right? I want honest feedback. And that's one way I hope to address policy changes, is the raw feedback.
That's good. Raw feedback.
On the spot, raw feedback.
On the spot. It definitely makes for uncomfortable Marines. I like it.
Love it.
I like it. I mean, you could by name request me. I could be your admin chief later on. I mean, but that's if you got that kind of pull. That's if you got that kind of pull. And I know some people. I do have to say that I'm excited for you. I think you're pretty excited about it as well. I think, when everybody found out you were taking command at Mouse 12, going back to, stomping grounds of Iwakuni, that's where we met. And can you, now that we covered all the meat and potatoes, let the listeners know how we actually met and what was this, what was the scenario, what was the experience with me as a young, I think it was a sergeant, maybe a sergeant, or I don't know, I think it was sergeant at the time. And what is
I touched on.
Go ahead.
I touched on a little bit on our first podcast, but it was one of those things where we met at a random kind of get together, and two passionate Marines about the Marine Corps, and next thing you know, we're kind of like going at it about policy and procedures, almost like this podcast right now, like heated but respectful, right? And it was good, and I think it was great. I loved it. I embrace it all the time, And I think at the end, I ended up giving you my Marine Corps pin off my jacket, and I hope you still have it. But
Absolutely.
it kept us together, right? And it's kept us together ever since. And I will say that I'm very happy that our friendship has continued to evolve as you've continued to progress through the ranks, as I continue to progress through the ranks, as our relationship continues to mature. You bringing me on the podcast has really helped me break out of my shell, especially as becoming a CEO. Things are a lot different today, and you were kind of the catalyst of me saying, you know what, you're right. I need to be more transparent behind my motivation to kick off my social media hype on X, right?
Yeah.
Right. And we've had conversations about that where I told you I'm going for it. I'm about to do it because I can't be honest with you on here if I can't be honest with, the world. And, just on X is a great way to, it's very humbling. It'll set you straight, right? It's a lot of hard work. And it's a lot of fun though.
Absolutely. Again, your time is precious. Thank you for coming on. I know you're on a time crunch. You got some stuff going on in the great city of Tokyo. So I will say this. Um, I would love to be at the change of command. I will do my very best to get out there on a AMC Patriot flight just to come see it with with the fam. That would be dope.
Yeah.
I think I can make time for that, and I mean it's it's in like 2 weeks, so I got to see. I don't think I have that much leave in the books, right? But I'm definitely gonna attempt to see what's going on, and I'm excited for you. We got to have you back on. 6 months into the command and see where you see if your feet are wet and see how it's going for you and see what the way forward is for you and the culture there. And I'm pretty excited about the culture at Mouse 12. They got a good, I always say, as long as you're a good dude, right? And I've known you so long that you're just a good dude, man. You treat us how you want to be treated, and you've always been respectful. And I hate using professional, but that's just the word that I got right now. Professional with me. And you treat me how I want to be treated as a man, and I treat you the same, and it's always been reciprocal. And I think that just by that example, you're going to inspire all the Marines under your charge, and even civilians, maybe, I think, and maybe even sailors. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm excited for you, sir. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for, I got one more thing. Service members deal with mental adversity and resilience, and they build resilience through adversity. But sometimes service members transitioning out have a hard time. And a lot of the time, that 22 to 44, that number, it really, the majority of it happens when they transition from the service. And, they got the onesies and twosies, that happen during service. And I think you know what I'm talking about. But what can you provide in your 20 plus years of service with mental adversity and how to be resilient in terms of transitioning maybe or in service? Like, look, I know it's painful. And the mantra is pain is leaving, what is weakness leaving the body? Something like that. But how can you would give the listeners a tool for their toolbox in terms of mental adversity and resilience? That way they're not taking that road of suicide or creating pain and friction for everybody else.
Snap and pop. Snap and pop, right? You gotta be self-aware, right? It comes back to this, right? When you're not in the right state of mind, be self-aware, right? Make sure you're taking care of yourself. And that's why I love that snap and pop, the decision making for whatever decision you're going to make. It doesn't only apply to the Marine Corps, but it can apply to decisions in your life. And if you ingrain this, I especially like on X, I watch these guys that are 50s and 60s and the things that they still have that a CO just gave them, and they're still holding on to a word that a CO said or a sergeant major said. Those things are so important. That's number one. And number two, I would say what I've learned, and if they're one of my psychologist friends or I think what we often get wrong as somebody that's trying to watch out for other people is telling them that everything's going to be okay. And we revert to that because it kind of feels good for the moment, right? Everything's going to be okay. Just, work on it, push through it. When really we should be saying, please get professional help. Let me get you professional help. I'm going to follow up with you tomorrow. I need to follow up with you tomorrow. And you stay persistent on that, right? Right? You say like, hey man, I got to follow up with you. I'm not a professional. I don't know what's going through your mind. I don't know what chemicals are being released and where you're at, where your state of mind in, but you need some professional help. If you're thinking this way, you need some serious professional help. And don't say everything's going to be okay, man, because if it's not okay tomorrow, and that service member, something happens to that veteran or that service member that you just said it was going to be okay, that's going to be a hard pill to swallow for yourself as well. So I would say those are the two things, right? Snap and pop, man. Snap and pop, right? Precision execution, man. Silent drill team motivated, self-aware, necessary. Change your attitude, get the right attitude. Find your purpose again as you're transitioning out, right? Whatever your new purpose is, because the Marine Corps, we strip the identity, right? From the start. You're now, hair's gone, everybody looks the same. I'm not Freddie Perez anymore. I'm Marine, right? And it's hard to adjust back to who am I as an identity? And you got to slowly make your way back to it.
That's good.
With that.
That's good. Snap and pop. That's applicable. Everything you do, I like it. I'm gonna have to use it. Put on a shirt. Snap and pop. And then don't. It's. But you're on my podcast, so I think I have the rights to it. I think if I'm not mistaken. Sir, thanks for coming on again. We got to have you back on. 6 months into your snapping of the command and see how your feet are getting wet. And I think it'll be relevant. I think it'll be applicable. I think it'll be good to see what it's like and see if your friction points change. See if the pros and cons are different than from where we started and what we initially talked about. So thank you for coming on. If a service member wants to talk about it and talk about some more about you, you got any social media handles or where they can reach you at?
The Lieutenant Colonel USMC on X is the best way. Communicate daily with everybody, share a lot of inspiring stories, and try to motivate people.
Sweet. I'll put it in the bio. Sir, again, thank you for coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Pit Talk, pulling pits and opinions with your host, Gunny G, where service members help service members, period. Follow, like, subscribe, everywhere you get your podcast, and on all social media platforms. Let me know how I'm doing. Any criticism is good criticism. Ladies and gentlemen, we out.